Secondly, from my side, if you ask me the question as to was this gender-based violence, da 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 da, as Sis Kosi has mentioned, this is a person that identifies as a gay man. I'm sorry, I didn't know much about that. I was going to ask, how does Bujy identify? It goes back to doing research about queer people. You get people who say, look, I am a woman in a man's body. And that's their right to say that about themselves, okay? So if you ask me, then Yumi, how do you identify? I will say I'm a woman in a woman's body. However, I'm a masculine representing women. There's a huge difference there. So, with all due respect, and I stand to be corrected by anyone. Like I said, I am at work. I just had to jump in and correct you there, brother man. Can we please just do more research before we start talking about, no, this was assigned to me at birth and this and that, it's a choice. My guy, it goes deeper than that. And yes, maybe there are people who say, man, these are things of, the people are being westernized and all that. What is this nonsense? Sikudeswe kanje na kanje. Bro, please do some research, my guy, with all due respect. Thank you for the platform. Thanks.
Can I just quickly, just 2 seconds, kind of respond to that, Yomi? Probably you've misunderstood me. Like I said, I gave a preface before I said what I said. I do believe, there are people, like I said, who from birth, I believe, strongly believe, they find themselves in the wrong body. I do believe that. I've seen them firsthand, right? However, I also don't believe that the LGBTQ community is sort of kind of monosexual, if you like, for lack of a better word, in the sense of what everyone is like that, everyone from birth. There are people who choose experienced in all my life. Let me try and experience this. I find good male friends, good male figures, then so I'm attracted to them. Then increasingly you become attracted to them. And for me, I don't have any issues. I respect everyone, regardless of their life choices. But I don't believe everyone from birth I would say I believe at some point, gender, whatever your sexuality, you choose it. You choose to remain how you were born at some point, or you choose to remain how you're born, or you choose to disenfranchise yourself and go with another choice, of which I still do respect that. Thank you.
Budom, thank you for that. Sorry, Sis Penny. This takes me back to when I was growing up. I really thought that yazini I mnandizofumana inkomo ekhaya ndingumfazi. That's what a girl needs to do, bring inkomo zelobola and all that. I've been there, done that, but guess what? Never worked out for me. So for me, I think the only problem that I still have with you is the choice part of things, but I don't want to dwell on that. To answer the question, and I'm out of here, I think that was an assault. If we can just find out as to what does Upuji identify as, if he says I am a woman in a man's body, then I would just say, okay, cool, that was an assault. But I'm not taking any sides. I was not there. I don't know, based on what I've been reading and coming across. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Wow. Trevor. Oh, okay. Um, I think the question is Bougie guilty of GBV? What is the difference between assault and GBV? An assault is the act of inflicting physical harm or unwanted physical contact upon a person or, in some specific legal definitions, a threat or attempt to commit such an action. It is both a crime and a tort, and therefore may result in criminal prosecution, civil liability, or both. GBV, the 6 types of GBV. Violence against women and girls, VAWG. Violence against LGBTI people. Intimate partner violence. That is always associated within the LGBTI community when it's women on women or men on men, depending on transgender, on how they identify themselves. Domestic violence. We all live in the same vicinity, in the same house. It could be me hitting my mother or me hitting my child, or it's domestic. We are all in the same household. Sexual violence, that's where rape will come in, and that could be between men, a man and a woman. It could be between a man and a woman can sexually assault each other as well. Indirect structural violence, that's another form. Those are the 6 type. The question has nothing to do with Buji's gender identification. I think we're all clear on that. And Makona was very clear in explaining in how, based on what Buji has stated over time, that he identifies as a gay man. But now, if you look at the statement of Boity at the end, she dims this according to gender-based violence. I mean, I didn't see what Buji had said in that. Obviously, it happened in a public space. So there is a form of assault. But now, if she is deeming it as gender-based violence, now the onus is on her and him, because he identifies as a gay man. I mean, unless if he tells us his pronouns, then we'll call about it. But for all I understand, his pronouns are him. That they identify how will that have influence on whether it being gender-based violence is going to be based on the evidence that's going to be referenced. But at the end of the day, we're a violent society, and Kosi alluded to that a lot, that, when it's men and men, it's bakipaninkan. No, it's violence. And we really need to get to that. And we need to also work with the sensitivity of whether you believe, that people are born this way or not born that way. Trevor, it has an element of it being offensive, and it's actually not what's under discussion here. And their sexuality shouldn't be coming to play. In this conversation, we're talking about, if anything, we will all land on gender-based violence because it involves two genders. At the end of the day, whether Buji identifies, as a man or he identifies as a woman, it's two beings who have some form of gender, who are in a violent act. So it could be any of these 6. It could be women. It could be violence against women and girls. That violence is not just performed by men, and girls. Women also do violence against women and girls. Violence against LGBTQI. So if he identifies as a trans or whatever, it could fall there. If they were in a relationship, it could be an intimate. Do you know what I mean? But let's agree that violence is a problem in a public space. And in this case, I think Nzigi also touched on the fact that, is it just a shibin brawl? That also alcohol played a particular role to that. It doesn't excuse any of them getting into a fight. It doesn't excuse anybody hitting anyone. But these are 2 young people with public profiles who are having a public brawl. That brings a conversation about one of the biggest crises, excuse my English, that we're facing in our country. public violence and gender-based violence. That's what we're dealing with. Thank you.
I want to know, okay, so Mpilisa, I saw you coming in there. I want to know, because you guys keep saying that he identifies as a man, he identifies as a... If he identified as a female, then what does that mean?
If he identifies as a female, it is still gender-based violence. According to these 6 types of violence, I mean, violence against women and girls, doesn't mean that women don't perform violence against other women, and therefore, if it's not gender-based violence. It's gender-based violence, but I think and I could be incorrect, I think in the charge thing, it's going to be assault, but it falls under gender-based violence. I mean, when they do in the charge office, they're going to call it assault, common assault, or whatever. But when we speak collectively to it, what are we speaking about? We're speaking about violence where it involves, 2 genders, whether he identifies as a woman or not. For me, their sexuality makes no difference. There is violence.
Thank you.
So,
Mpili said you want to come in, and then
Hello.
yes, I'm going to let the new speakers in. Please remember, guys, if there's a man and a woman who both want to speak, the woman comes first. And then also new speakers also take priority. And you can just keep it free-flowing. I'm not here to mediate. Thanks, Mpili.
Ngiyabonga dadewethu. No, I had like a question similar to that you just asked. In terms of what actually makes like a violence a gender-based violence. I think we all understand that what violence is, and like in this instance, that is violence. Like it cannot be excused. But what makes any violence specifically a gender-based violence? Because when Utadewethu was like describing forms of GBVs, to me it almost sounded like all forms of violence are gender-based violence. If I'm wrong, she will correct me. Maybe I should like put this differently. What kind of violence are not GBV? Because when like she was listing forms of like GBVs, I almost felt like everything that happens like around us is GBV, according to how like she explained it. Maybe if she can like give us a clarity as to like make examples of violence that is not GBV. Thank you.
Sis Pokazi, do you want to have your say? I did notice that you were having connectivity issues. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in there or Nosh again.
can I, yeah, just to probably reiterate what Mpilis was saying, can we have a definition of the intersectional? I think where we're confused is the intersectionality between that clearly demarcates between male and female. And like I said, I know Uyomi felt and Dupene. I don't understand the LGBTQ community, but I feel for us to actually have a clear definition of what violence is and GBV is, because from my I'll call it traditional definition of GBV, I've always looked at it through the lens of the traditional definitions of that demarcates between the 2 genders, male and female. Despite the fact that okay, fine, I take it on board. You can be born in the wrong body, right? But I think the intersectionality that confuses people is what then, if you define yourself as a man, if you're born as a man, but then you identify as LGBTQ, and let's remember also that when LGBTQ includes people who are bisexual, which means you're attracted to both sexes, right? So then, effectively, where do we draw the line, if ever we should draw the line? And then that way, if there's black and white, because at the moment everything's grayish. So at that moment, then we can say, okay, fine, that's GBV, that's assault. Thanks.
I don't know if I would be sounding very silly if I were to say, how about we focus on the people's pronouns and how they would like to be identified? Then perhaps we'll take it from there. I stand to be corrected.
I'm still confused as to when it's not GBV. What I'm hearing us say is that under no circumstances should a man hit a woman because of the power dynamic. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. So I don't know where all the sexuality stuff fits in.
Yeah.
I think it's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the discomfort is coming. Yeah, okay, I'm listening.
Angithi, we agreed that we should remove the sexuality because it does indeed cloud the conversation, because first of all, we do not have sufficient evidence in front of us which says one is indeed a man, even though I have heard them on several occasions identify themselves as a gay man. But once again, that is besides the point. The point that we're dealing with here is that we live in a very violent society. This violence, because it is mostly exerted on women and children, we as a society collectively decided to declare a war against gender-based violence against women and children. This does not, however, mean that there is no violence against men on men. Men are afraid of men too, believe it or not. They are petrified of other men. It also does not mean that women are incapable of being violent against men, women, and children. However, the term as a society, as I understand from reading sociology papers, all the papers that we all read to try and enlighten ourselves, even though we're not specialists in those particular areas, is that society, South Africa as a society, we all jointly agreed that the high numbers of violence uh, of violence that is perpetuated by specifically men against women and children, we should collectively declare war against it. And that became over time something that we all commonly refer to young people with promising futures.
I think if I can come in there, like I think the reason why, I mean, just my observation, the reason why some of the speakers, like I've sort of, are sort of touching on the, like, I mean, how do we separate or differentiate between assault and GBV and specifically, like, I mean, like with Bujy as being, like, I mean, the gay man, is exactly because of that point, in that it's rare, like, I mean, or like specifically for me, it's the first time that I've heard of a case where, like, I mean, there's been a case opened and it's been like a gay or lesbian person, like, I mean, having assaulted someone who is, like, I mean, not of the same, like, I mean, excuse the word, like, I mean, same group, like, I mean, sorry for using that if that's not the right word to use, but I think this is the first time that is happening. So now it's sparking a different kind of debate, in the sense that up until now, like, I mean, we've been looking at GBV as being, like, I mean, you've got this man, like, I mean, that is exerting some sort of power and abusing kids and wife and everyone in the house, or maybe this woman, it's rare, but yes. But now that we've got this case that is involving someone who identifies, it may have been someone identifying as a woman, like born a man, but identifying as a woman. Then in a situation like that, what do we call it? Do we group it under the gender-based violence? Do we regard that person as a man? Are we saying that because of the way that that person is identifying, that like the assault that they commit is now being defined differently? Like I think that's where like some of the speakers are coming from. I may be saying it wrong, but yeah.
I think maybe can we all just agree that we don't live in one linear world where everything is straightforward and things are black and white. This is a very complex world that we live in. It is systematically, it is complex, and there's lots of violence in its complexity as well. I think trying to say and trying to bog each other down to who's gay, who's a man, who's a woman. I don't think it matters. I don't think so far into this discussion I've found the conversations around people's sexuality or gender giving us very little value, to be quite honest. We have Penny made a very important contribution, which is defining the different types of violence, and certainly this falls this falls within that very comprehensive definition. I think us now trying to define who is man and who's a woman, and being linear about a very issue that a social issue that is very complex is going to derail us from a specific act of violence against one person perpetuated by another. I think that's you know it, it is not true that there isn't intersectional violence when it comes to genders. We read about lesbians being killed every day. So it's just that these lesbians are not famous. And that is why it is not has not caused the level of outrage that we and self confusion that we are now witnessing.
Sorry,
Oh, sorry, go on.
yeah, just like because I think my point earlier was like basically the opposite of that, in that like a situation where the gay or lesbian person is the one committing the assault. That's what I was pointing to, and specifically referring to what I've been exposed to, not necessarily generalizing that comment. Otherwise, I agree with you on the last point.
Okay, Nami Nyabus, thank you.
Yeah, I totally 110% agree with your latter point, Makosazana, with regards to that the intersectionality of gender-based violence from that's actually served by men to women, even men that identify themselves as gay or whatever. And this is where I think the undoing of the traditional definition of gender comes into play. And I think the LGBTQ community has got some work to do in terms of disrupting the traditional definition of gender. Because when you say gender-based violence, gender, there's some denotion or undertones or connotations of binary, right? So it's either you're black or white. But then we know in 2021 that that's not the case. So I think the LGBTQ community has got a job to do in terms of doing away with that the G part, the gender, because gender in many people's minds denotes it's either that or that too. So that's a binary sort of mindset that we all have. So, and I strongly believe that once that thing is done away with, once that definition is done away with, then you introduce this new disruptive definition. Then we can now start having that conversation between, we can start having that conversation between, because at the moment, for me, if it doesn't matter whether you identify yourself as gay, bisexual, or whatever, if you are a man and you're assaulting a woman,
I'm sorry,
for me that's
Trevor,
gender-based violence.
I'm sorry, good Trevor, but I really do not like how you continuously put the word whatever after you mention gay word or lesbian word, and then you put the word whatever after it. You continuously do that. I really dislike that pattern of wording that you're using. Kindly please correct it.
Okay, so I take that on board. It's just that okay, again, you see, this is where
No excuse, please.
it's an
It's very
opportunity
offensive.
to use.
No excuse. It's very offensive.
For you guys, I said LGBTQ community because the definition is endless, can be endless. That's why I'm leaving it open.
It does not include any whatever.
I'm not. I do not know what you identify yourself as, and I don't want to put you in a box to say you are this or that, and that's why I say
whatever word is very offensive and very whatever is like you're dismissing. So please refrain or re-put your words together before you speak, please.
So LGBTQ and etc. community, because let's be honest, guys. Let's be honest, yeah. We accept that there are infinite genders, right? And so if you identify yourself as bi or as lesbian, you then cannot put a full stop, correct, to how I identify myself. So you cannot limit me to a she, a he, correct? So when I say whatever, I say it respectfully, like I said, and I prefaced it by saying this, that I have, people who are my very closest friends who fall into that category. And I respect, by virtue of you being a human being, right? I respect you for just being a human being. Forget about your sexuality, right? But at the end of the day, when we're having this conversation, you also have to have an open mind. As much as you've introduced this LGBTQ community to me, you should also have an open mind to say that this is not endless. That the buck basically does not stop with you, right? But I do not look down upon you because you identify yourself as gay or sexual, gay, lesbian, whatever. I respect you with utmost respect, and I do take that back if I put it the whatever. It was a lack of a better word to say. Thank you.
Thank you for disagreeing with respect, guys. So what I'm picking up from our conversation today, is that any violence between man and women, so just as much as like when we say sex sells, and because people don't have access to sex, then they're going to want to go to the porn sites. It's the same that, oh, now it was Bujy, so now we can speak about the queer question. I think maybe that's what's happening in the space. But the bottom line in today's teaching is that gender-based violence is just that, based on gender. The minute there is a difference in genders, that's when it's called gender-based violence. That's what I'm hearing. I do have a new speaker that's just come on, so let me give her a chance. Aspiring ungangena, babes. The aspiring neuropsychologist, ubani gama lakho? Musene, Mo Musene. Do you want to have something to say? Otherwise, Unosh Lutu ungangena ke while we wait for aspiring. Have we lost the connection or what's happening? Because I see Nosh is not thinking. But you guys can hear me, ne?
Yeah, she's
Okay.
connecting now, aspiring.
Yes, Trevor, please can you keep quiet because you've offended people enough today. But I do invite more voices. Do come to my DM if I'm not seeing. We are wrapping up now because I do kind of feel like, okay, it's a bit clearer now what happened at the, although we don't have the facts, but we at least are learning the difference, what GBV actually is, what assault is, and why sexual orientation has got absolutely nothing to do with violence. Sharp.
I actually I agree on that one. And I actually think, based on the comments made earlier, that maybe it might be beneficial at a later date to also, having a discussion around what are the things to look at. To know, like, that one needs to know about sexual orientation, what we can learn, and especially those who are not exposed to the different types of sexual orientations out there and the differences that people have. And we use the wrong terminology and say the wrong things. And I noted what Trevor said earlier and the correction that was made. And I found myself thinking that outside of this topic of GBV, I'm wondering what else I could be saying out there to people that could not, is offensive in some way. Maybe I'm not being told. I think maybe it might be beneficial to everyone. If that discussion can happen in these spaces.
Mpili, you said to wrap up. I see your hand is up.
No, I heard you saying it's clear what GBV is, but maybe I'm a slow learner or I wasn't listening attentively. I missed the point. Like, I didn't get what GBV is in its actuality. But I did get some points there and there. But I still had a problem with the mentioning of what people identify themselves with. I mean, especially here on Twitter, we see videos every day of school boys beating school girls, etc. And what do you call that? It's two strangers fighting, and at face value, that is gender-based violence because we are seeing a boy slapping a girl on a video. And if we're putting in this equation what people identifies with, I think we're being counterproductive in the campaign against GBV, because it means we now must wait until the following day before we call it GBV, until somebody actually confirms that these people actually identifies as different sexes, if that's English even exists. So I'm confused. I don't want to say, to use the word traditional, because it might be offensive itself. But I feel like it's better if we use Jenny Tyler to explain gender-based violence. Just use Jenny Tyler. If somebody with a penis is doing violence against somebody with a VJJ, as Nsiki normally calls it, that's gender-based violence, regardless of who you sleep with. Like, according to how I think this should be looked at. But I might be wrong. I am not very much informed in these issues. I just follow because you must follow. Thank you.
Sisanele, I think you can jump in there.
Thank you, Sis Ntiki. Thank you very much. Now I want to agree or lean towards Sis Nomakosazana. I think when she spoke earlier, she
May I
was
just pause you there? But Anele, can I pause you there a little bit? Sis Pumez, I can see you're trying to speak and your speaker's not clear. Can we
I'm
just
not talking at all.
Oh, really? Your thing
Nope.
is on. Okay, just turn off your mic. You can come on after Uput
Okay.
Anele. Sharp, sharp.
All right. Okay, sure.
thank you, Susom. I was saying I want to agree with Mrs. Nomakosazana when she was talking earlier. She was really spot on. And then we got carried away by the mistakes of what people were saying, trying to clarify this matter. But the matter at hand is Bujy committed a crime, which crime is a assault. It's a crime that is the assault that he committed. Number two, by the fact that Bujy is a gay man, it's immaterial. But at the end of the day, Bujy in South Africa, we've got a male and a female. Yes, there is other groups, which is those lesbians and gays, which our constitution really appreciate them. We also, as a community, we appreciate them. But now, Bujy, by birth, is a male. If you assault a female being a man, it's a gender-based violence. So he will be charged for assault. There is no crime that is called gender-based violence. He will be charged for assault because he caused bodily harm.
You started tonight. I think I'm just going to go a little bit off ramp. All I want to say is that South Africa is a very violent country towards women. And one of the things I think we should be thinking about is how we have become the people that we are. I think oppression, having been treated as second-class citizens, the generational trauma that abides in families and is being transferred to all of us. And when it comes to these women and children, you know, in times of strife, in times of hardship, women and children tend to be the scapegoats or they suffer more. I think this is not going to end as long as we are still not totally free. What do I mean by freedom? We are We are not in charge as Black people. We are not in charge of South Africa. I talk as a person who travels around the world. I'm based in Germany as we talk. And the Germans are in charge of Germany. The Chinese are in China. The Russians are in Russia. And I mean, some of us might be doing better than the others, but as long as we have people who look like us, who carry our heritage, who speak our languages, wallowing in informal settlements and shacks, we are not free. And that goes with a lot of psychological problems, mental health, violence. So in a way, this is structural. It is something that we shouldn't be thinking, oh, where does it come from? The Black man is horrible and this and this and this. I think most of our problems stem from there. It doesn't mean that in other countries that doesn't exist. There's GBV everywhere. But in South Africa particularly, it is horrible. I mean, in South Africa, as a woman, you can't even walk half an hour without being disturbed by men asking for your number, telling you all sorts of things in the streets, and also religion. If you think about religion, I think all of us have read the Bible, but we know that the sin came through Eve, and Adam was this hopeless person who was enticed by a woman. God is a man. There are verses that say the man is the head of the family and the woman is the neck, blah, blah, blah. The problem with patriarchy as a whole, it's got many layers, and these layers are also not good for men because men think that to be a man, they have to be this kind of a person. So it's also hard for men to discover who they really are, what kind of man they want to be. Men are told that they are not supposed to cry, but if you look at children, young boys, how attached they are to their mothers. They cry for their mother, but as soon as they get older, they are told to shove all their emotions down. And also when they get angry in relationships, they are not used to talking, to expressing, because expressing is seen as something that's that portrays men as weak, as women-like. So I think the most important thing for all of us, men and women alike, is to find. For me as a woman, I want to be my own woman. I want to express myself in the best way that I can. And men, if they want to have peace with women, they should also try to find out how they were brought up, how they could change certain things about themselves to really come into themselves and get to know themselves, and also stop seeing women as just sex objects walking in the streets, and try to have a much deeper connection with their women, with their sisters. And patriarchy is a stumbling block in all these relationships. Another thing I would say, I think this problem we have in South Africa, we need policies in schools, certain policies which will be driven in schools to really teach children. I know some people say that, you can't teach children. I mean, if children get raped, you might as well teach them about sex, that no one should touch them in their private parts, and if someone does that, they should come and tell you to treat, or to teach also young boys how to be gentle, how to be kind. And I think for me, this is the only way, because now, if we are trying to solve the issue of GBV when everyone is already old and made, it's really hard. So we have to start with children in schools. We have to have teachers who are basically purely employed to teach children these things. Anyway. Thank you so much. I could go on and on, but I don't want to take too much time.
Again, I come back to when do we acknowledge women who are violent to male partners, and acknowledging that as GBV also. So, you guys. Spokas, you've been trying for so long. Do you want to jump in there? Okay, it looks like maybe there's a connection problem again there. I don't know if anybody wants to add on a little bit before we close off then, to help us with this understanding of, is he guilty of GBV, and what's the difference between assault and GBV? Penny, you were so good at breaking this down for us. Do you want to round it up for us? Because I think people have aired out this topic.
Okay. Ish. Yeah, I had gotten cut off earlier on. I think what we have to acknowledge is that gender-based violence and violence against women have sort of like been used interchangeably as terms, because most violence against women is inflicted by man for gender reasons. And gender-based violence affects women disproportionately. So we know that. But we also understand, I was also trying to find like the global definitions. For example, when the UN talks about the Declaration of Elimination of Violence Against Women, they define violence against women as an act of gender-based violence that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, psychological harm or suffering of women. So it's an act of gender-based violence. So already there, that's when they narrowing it down to violence against women. But in more recent legal documents, for example, they are starting to talk about how these definitions need to be broadened to apply to instances where gender is the basis for violence, which we know is carried out against a person. However, there is more to gender than being male and female. Someone may be born with female sexual characteristics but identify as male, or as male and female at the same time. And sometimes this is neither male or female. So obviously when the conversation comes in, we tend to want to find where's the female, who's the male, so where's the gender, based violence. And we kind of like lose it. And I think words of like traditionally, people making choices, that's it will not bring us closer to have a conversation about the issue that's at the center. If anything, it offends others and it makes others feel that they are not. I mean, they're violence against them because they're not female or male, according to this terminology. It becomes problematic. So when we were talking about how the act is assault, that's what the criminal charge sheet is going to say. But it's an act of, gender-based violence. Because for me, even if I'm going to move from all of that, if it was two women, fighting. I'm not going to say it was some girls beating each other up. It's a form of gender-based violence, as far as I'm concerned, because violence is at the center of it. So if now we want to focus on genitalia and sexual orientation, I just think we're really missing the point. And I like the brother who said that, people need to do a lot of work. But I also disagreed with the brother who said the LGBTQI community needs to do a lot of work to be disruptive and educate. Come on, the information is out there. They have been educating, and men need to do the work on educating themselves and coming to conversations with understanding of sensitivity around issues and stop hiding behind traditionally, this is not how things were. This is where we are. We are here right now. And we can't hide behind, but we don't know, somebody must educate us. No. The LGBTQI community braves themselves every day to put themselves out there. Now you want them to educate you. I think that's a lot. Just the same way women must walk in the streets feeling unsafe and deal with all of these things. And now they must also educate you. Guys, come on.
Since can I just rebut or suspend it? You've made very, very valid points. However, if I take you back, to the suffragettes, say for example here in Europe or in the Americas, where women are not even allowed, for example, to vote, they organized. They put one clear message to say, women are no less than men, right? So this is what I'm trying to say to you. Boity, you may feel Boity, the message is going out there, but the message, people are so confused. You understand that? Because the LGBTQI community, it's an open definition with an infinite ending, right? As much as I respect whatever choice you make in life, and a lot of people do respect that, but people want to understand. For one, I am keen to understand what you stand for, who you are, and what it means. For example, when they say gender-based violence, because I know for a fact there are some men who are born as male, then they hide behind to say, "Oh, I'm gay," to try and evade responsibility and accountability.
But you don't know
And for
that.
me,
You can't say that matter of factly, my brother. This is what we've been trying to say the whole evening. It's what you perceive, you believe. So you can't factually, continuously, emphatically say that's how it is. And that's what the problem with your tone and direction the entire evening. Leave it there. That's not what, firstly, it's not what we're discussing here tonight. We are discussing, is Bujy guilty of GBV? What is the difference between GBV and assault? And Makhosa's gonna address the fact, that Bujy identifies as a gay man, but you keep on hampering on that. This, what that is doing is, one, you are taking us back, and you are creating this thing that is spinning in the middle of this conversation. Violence, gender, binary, non-binary, we've discussed that. But at the heart of this matter is really not where we are tonight. And I think offline, you need to go do the work for you to understand for yourself. And we can have another space where we're going to talk about gender identities and all of that. But right now, honestly, this layer that you bring to this conversation does not take us forward, because we've already just addressed that Bujy identifies as a gay man. What else do you want us to address when it comes to this matter?
What does that mean as a gay man? What does that mean as a gay man in terms of the gender-based violence in South Africa? Like today, when you look at the statistics, that women suffer under men, right?
Yeah,
what does that mean?
A definition that also helps, that we can have a look at, is intimate partner violence. So intimate partner violence explains that in a relationship. Yeah. So you have
In a
maybe
same-sex relationship. In a same-sex
yes, a
relationship. Yeah.
same-sex relationship, and that would be defined as intimate partner violence, but that still falls under gender-based violence.
Yes.
So it becomes clear then that it's not up to sexual orientation. It's basically like harming another individual, or discrimination, and that violence also results from unequal power on the basis of gender roles and norms. So I would say that yes, Bujy committed gender-based violence. But one thing to start off where it helps is looking at intimate partner violence that is also under gender-based violence.
His line is bad.
Okay, so it's not just me. Okay, so it's Trevor's line that's bad.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I think it's the ancestors of the queer community coming through there.
Oi, that's not my line. That's bad. I wasn't the one that's talking, Sisa.
I understand that a lot of people are coming to my DMs and not being able to request. And even me, it's stressing me. I know we want to hear from Astro Bear, one of our faves. So I don't know why I'm not finding her here or why her request is not coming through. It's frustrating me a bit. But please, guys, do, because some of your requests do come through. So please continue requesting to speak. Remember, tomorrow, Space Station is going to happen in the morning. Sunday morning, we are going to unpack the R. Kelly verdict, and we're going to talk about the impact of me in sanitizing powerful perpetrators. So please, can you diarize that, guys? Tomorrow, I think Abu 9 so that we've had our coffee. It's not too violent, but we're unpacking the R. Kelly case and whatever opinions you might have maybe in the South African context. Let me hand over to you guys. We are still unpacking this thing because I still don't think we understand, Sis Penny, exactly the intersection where it falls. Because we thought now we had a way out when we said, oh, okay, it's based on gender and genitalia and boy or girl. But you're saying, no, it's not like that. And we're diminishing the argument. So I don't know. We need to still re-educate ourselves, guys. Let's continue the conversation. We do have new speakers. Thank you. Oh my word, guys. Kanti, you're waiting for me to introduce and not what? Okay, Didi, do you want to have something to say? And then General IT, you can go after Didi because we start with women on the space. And Council, I see you're on the thing now and you're requesting. You did want to break it down to us, the difference between GBV and assault from a legal perspective. So we're most welcome to that. Speakers, please remember, I don't like meditating. So please just jump in whenever you feel the energy like inside, and let's make it a conversation. Thanks so much for joining. This is so worthwhile and it's actually teaching us a lot. Shabre.
I think it would actually be very interesting to hear what counsel says from a legal perspective, because as I was listening, I actually think it sounds easier the more people speak and bring about different viewpoints. I think it could be something similar to sports and how, regardless of the sexual orientation, but the fact that you are male, you would not be allowed to Pardon?
Oh, your mic is so terrible. Are you on speaker
Oh
or
my word.
something? You're the line simple. Now we've totally lost you. Okay.
Okay, am I back on?
Yeah, it's better now.
Okay, cool. No, I was saying it would be interesting to hear what counsel says from a legal perspective. So as I was listening to different speakers, I'm thinking this could maybe be something similar to sports, how as a male person you would not be allowed to compete against females in certain categories of sports. And in that case, regardless of what Bujy identifies as, this would then be gender-based violence because then he is born male regardless of his sexual orientation. Well, I just thought so. I'm just waiting to hear what counsel would say because I'm interested in the legal part of it.
Good evening, everyone. So it's I'm gonna try and be brief, right, so that we can continue with this conversation not only on a legal basis but other basis as well. So, in terms of a legal definition, what is assault? Assault is unlawful, intentional appliance of force to another person. It says appliance of force. It does not say hitting somebody with a closed fist or an open fist. That's what it says. Now, what does that mean? It means that if you apply force to anybody else, you are actually assaulting them. It does not mean that you are beating them up, as it will be in the case of Boity and Bujy. That is the confusion. So the legal definition is kind of broad so that it can protect various rights of people. For example, I can shove or push Ntsiki, and that is me applying force. I push her against the wall, and she actually bumps her head. Remember, I haven't slapped her, so to speak. But that is assault. But what is GBV? So GBV is any act, any violent act for that matter, against a certain person based on their gender. So that means that if Auspeni was to slap me, so to speak, on my face with an open hand, in the legal definition, there's a difference between open and closed hand. So an open hand will be a slap, and then a closed hand will be a fist. If she was to slap me on my face, that is assault. But is it GBV? It can only be GBV if and when she does that based on my gender. For example, if I'm gay and she's slapping me because I'm gay, that is gender-based violence. And there's a little bit of a confusion where those two are differentiated. So what we must do in the case of Boity and Bujy is to differentiate, one, whether Bujy, when he was assaulting, and I'm using the word assaulting with intention, when he was assaulting her, was it because of her gender, or was it just an ordinary fight wherein they had disagreements and they didn't agree on certain things? So if it was just based on him just assaulting her, that is an assault. It's as simple as that. But if he did it based on gender, on her gender, that is gender-based violence. And I want you guys to follow that. because normally people just assault each other despite their genders, despite what they think at the back of their minds, why they are actually doing that. But in South Africa, the definition has been used to the extent that it refers mainly to males perpetrating crimes of assault, murder, and so forth to women. And we understand that because mostly in South Africa, when we report cases of murder, assault, rape, and stuff like that, it is against women, as opposed to the cases that have not made it to the mainstream media, so to speak, which are women versus men, women perpetrating crimes against men. So we need to actually differentiate that. I heard Ms. Penny speaking about the issue of the charge sheet. The charge sheet will not say it was GBV. The charge sheet will say assault. But the charge sheet must also explain what kind of an assault was it. It must say this person by the name of Bujy was actually assaulting this woman with an open